This is Gnembon, a Java developer at Mojang who has overseen many things. Among them, the Garden Awakens update, the April Fool's Potato update, the Wild update, and much more. So, he decided to give an interview to Minecraft YouTuber Tidzimi. It turned out that Gnembon is from Poland, just like Tidzimi. So they teamed up and recorded an interview where Gnembon gave many answers to questions that interest all of us. I watched it all and selected the most interesting and, in my opinion, important questions and answers. When is the end update? This is probably the most popular question in the entire community, and as was generally expected, the answer is quite simple: as soon as possible. It all depends on priorities. First, they look at what needs to be fixed, where resources can be allocated, meaning people, and only later do they distribute tasks to different teams to implement new features. For now, the end update is not a priority. Do you know what the most important thing I noticed for myself is? Perhaps there's some meaning to it. The studio conducts a lot of research before adding something to the game, just like they did with bundles. If you believe the achievement statistics, only 5% of players in Bedrock Minecraft have entered the end, and 4% have killed the Ender Dragon. Only 1% of players have resurrected the Ender Dragon. The biggest complaint from players is that killing the dragon on mobile is really hard. This is true. The battle with the dragon is difficult even on PC, so perhaps the developers are looking into this before prioritizing updates. Or maybe they're already working on it. Do developers create content? No, they just implement it. Game designers are the ones who come up with the ideas. They first create concept art and send the ideas to the developers, who then simply execute the task. But if something doesn't look good, they can speak up. There's a specific structure, a team that decides what will be included in an update. Regular developers have no influence over what will appear in the game, but they can always make suggestions. For example, Gnembon didn't like that the Spore Blossom is a non-renewable block. It only appears in Lush Caves. It's the only block from Lush Caves that can't be renewed. So he gave his feedback, suggesting it should be renewable. They accepted it, and now we just wait. But so far, there's been silence. The same goes for holidays. During the winter holidays, developers get almost 3 weeks off. The first game Snapshot for the spring drop was developed before the holidays, but the last one, which featured new types of cows and fireflies, was released this year. That's why a few snapshots were technical ones with no clear new features. Should there be 4 drops a year? As for drops, there will be as many as needed. 4 drops per quarter is just one way it could look. If one drop contains too much content, some may be cut out and saved for the next drop. And then they can do the same with another drop, gradually splitting it across multiple releases. Or conversely, they can merge 2 drops into one and make it bigger to avoid postponing content. So instead of 4 drops, there might only be 2. It's hard to say, but it seems that different developer teams are working on different drops. Gnembon mentioned that if one team isn't able to finish an update, developers from another team can step in to help. There are at least 2 development teams. His team worked on the Garden Awakens drop, but the spring drop is being handled by another team. As for him, he's already working on the summer drop. The name isn't official yet, but according to leaks, it will have that technical name. In theory, you could say that 3 teams are working on drops, each working on its own. The team that developed the drop is fully responsible for it, including fixing bugs. And when the process nears its end, their team is redirected to create new updates. This way, developers don't rush, and the studio has time for analysis. The team calmly creates the future update, so they can even show not only the summer drop at the next Minecraft Live, but also the autumn drop. Based on Gnembon's veiled answers, there seems to be a 4th team working on that large-scale update. They have 3 years to create polished updates that could overshadow all the drops. Perhaps this refers to the end update. Why did the developers abandon the previous annual update schedule? The main problem with yearly updates was that they were yearly. They had to release the updates in the summer while also planning and developing the next year's update, which needed to be shown at Minecraft Live. And updates needed to be large and thematic since they came only once a year. For example, for the Trial Chambers update, only the structure was created. That wasn't enough for a yearly update. So they had to come up with additional new features to justify the development in 1 year. Gnembon even pointed out the cave update, which was split into 2 parts. He directly said that it shouldn't have been split, but instead should have been given more time, maybe 2 years, to make it a complete and polished update. Because they made many promises about content and didn't always manage to fulfill them, it was decided to move away from the concept of one large update per year. Instead, there will be smaller drops, but more often. However, he also admitted that the drops were created to maintain the game's popularity. After all, snapshots were unstable, could cause world issues, and were only created to test new features. features. Because of this, about 90% of players don't play snapshots, and only a small part of the community was interested in them. That's why Minecraft's popularity declined, and this decision killed two birds with one stone. Updates come out more often, the game's popularity doesn't drop, and because they're smaller, developers don't have to worry about not meeting their promises. They no longer want to show or announce things that aren't 100% ready. If something appears at Minecraft Live, it will only be what's finished and won't be postponed. For The Garden Awakens, the developers had only 3-4 months, so in that short time, they essentially made the drop from scratch. Why are April Fool's snapshots so massive? As it turned out, it's because this version doesn't need to be ported. When something new is added to Minecraft, developers try to think about how it will be in the game for many years ahead. When mods are created, they are mostly for the Java version. They can often ignore some things from the vanilla game and don't need to worry about what's already been done or what will be done. That mod won't appear on Bedrock. Don't forget that Bedrock is on consoles, iOS, Android, where everything needs to be optimized for different devices and control systems. Additionally, it has to be released simultaneously on all devices on the same day. April Fool's snapshots don't need to be ported. They're only created for one platform, Java. They won't appear anywhere else. Only the content created for this update will, not the ideas, like the coal blocks or resin, which did appear in the full game. That's why developers give themselves complete freedom to experiment. But sometimes there are problems. For example, the April Fool's potato update wasn't tested on macOS computers, so it kept crashing, and they had to fix that urgently. As Nembon pointed out, they treat the April Fool's update more like a mod. Bugs aren't fixed, it's a one-time version, and there's no need to support it later. Creating something new for it is a full flight of imagination from the developers, as all the ideas are thought up by the developers. How big is the office in Stockholm? The main office in Sweden has about 200 people. I'll point out that only a small part of these people works on updating the vanilla game, but developers understand that more people are needed for work. What about leaks? If we talk about leaks from Mojang, like those about the name of a new biome, they take full responsibility for them. They're not done on purpose. They happen by accident. Articles are written a few days ahead. But as for those leaks where they show what the biome will look like, that's definitely not them. It's very frustrating and demotivates the entire team. Because when leaks happen, the wow effect and surprise for the fans are lost. Of course, it's interesting for players, but from a marketing perspective, it harms the company and has unpleasant consequences. The cancellation of mob votes. What will replace them? In the article about the cancellation of mob votes, they said something interesting would replace them. The developers themselves don't understand what it means because those articles aren't written by them but by the marketing department. I myself don't understand why this was written, but again, the developers are mostly constrained by the NDA. Nembon may know what it's about, but to avoid legal issues, he said he doesn't know or he genuinely doesn't know. How will the problem with the numbering of updates and drops be resolved? Earlier, major updates were marked with the last two digits, like 1.20, 1.19, and so on. Now we have 1.21.3, 1.21.4, and 1.21.5 for the spring drop. This confuses old players and those who don't understand much about it. Earlier, the third digit meant the hotfix version. In most cases, those versions didn't have major new features, just bug fixes that needed immediate attention. Developers know this problem, they're aware of it, and know how to fix it. But Nembon can't give an answer on this matter yet, not because he doesn't know, but because he just can't talk about it. I think this will be clarified at the next Minecraft Live, which will be somewhere in March. But for now, there's no exact information. They want to unify these version numbers across Java and Bedrock. Will there be any focus on experiments? Yes, they still exist. Some recent changes include modifications to minecarts and trading with villagers. And from the past, there are combat snapshots by Jeb. But to be honest, he made them in his spare time when he was still the director of Vanilla. So, Nembon says that in practice, they should have looked at the players' reactions, gathered feedback, and only then decided what to do. Either remove them from the game and say the experiment didn't work, or take them out of the experiments and implement them in the full game. But in all experiments, the decision is made not by the developers, but by the company, and they decide what to do. How does Mojang handle criticism? It's very complicated. Developers can't really influence it. If it's criticism about bugs, that's something they can fix since it's part of their job. But if the criticism is about Mojang being lazy and making small updates, that's not up to them. Developers go to work and create only what they're told to create, as we talked about in the beginning. So, this kind of criticism should be handled by the studio, and for the most part, by the company that owns it, Microsoft. Developers try to approach any criticism thoughtfully, even if it bothers them. Why didn't they add the tuff and copper golems? As Nembon said, when updates are developed, all discussions are held with the team that will implement it into the game. They asked him why the copper and tuff golems weren't added to the trial chambers, which appeared in 1.21 update, since all of the structure consists of blocks from which these mobs are made. He responded, "I don't know, I didn't work on this update." This once again confirms that developers can't influence every update and add whatever they want to the game. Will the Minecraft market come to Java? The Minecraft market won't be added to Java Edition because it simply doesn't fit there. It doesn't fit the game's fanbase concept either. Overall, it's not needed. So, sleep easy. No one plans to add it to the game, or maybe Gnembon just doesn't know. But I think such things are discussed with everyone because it would radically change the game. Will Java be closed? Of course not. That's the dumbest question there can be. It's one thing to make mistakes with promises, but another to shoot yourself in the foot and close the development of this edition of the game. Java and Bedrock can exist simultaneously, and completely different teams are working on them. Even more, content is first developed for Java, and then it's roughly ported to Bedrock. There are exceptions, and something might appear on Bedrock earlier, like Goats did, but there are reasons for that. Will an illusioner be added to the game? It's all very complicated. The answer is always vague. It will appear when it's needed. Just like the zombie horse was added for some experiment, the illusioner was added for a specific purpose. So, we can say that if these two mobs appeared now, they would be in the experiments section. Okay, the interview was quite interesting. I'm glad the developers can come in and share a little about what's going on with them. Although, in any case, we won't be able to learn any super secrets, since every developer signs an NDA.